the great conservative movement of America and of our time. A brush fire of freedom is being lit all over this country. We, as an irate, tireless American populace, will overcome the few radical leftists that control the levers of power today. Joe Biden's failed economic policies has given us inflation like you can't believe, and the border is in disarray.
It's amazing how few of the people commenting on this have actually bothered to go see what's happening. Well, Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona actually went to the border.
Biggs, where's Andy? Boy, oh boy, Andy. There's a guy. He's tough.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Andy Biggs, Congressman from Arizona's 5th Congressional District. I am pleased to welcome you to another edition of What's the Biggs Idea, my semi-regular podcast. And we've been focusing on the border security now for the last couple weeks. And one of the things that happens in Congress is we get to meet some really great people who have strong convictions, know a lot about subjects, and just to do great things. And I will tell you that one of those is Todd Bensman. And Todd, you and I have been down to the border together more than once. I don't know how many times now, but I appreciate all that Todd does on the border, and he tries to notify people what's going on down there. He is currently National Security Fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies. Todd spent 9 years at the Texas Department of Public Safety's Intelligence and Counterterrorism Division. And Todd Bensman has spent 20 years also working as a journalist for places like Dallas Morning News, CBS, and Hearst newspapers. And Todd, thanks for taking time out to be with us today.
Absolutely. Great to see you again.
And Todd, you've been down to the border so many times. What's going on down there right now?
Well, I just returned from the border last week. I was in Matamoros and also Reynosa, Juarez, and then on the U.S. side as well over the last month or so. And what we can say is that the border is still under a mass migration influx of very, very high numbers that are 3 and 4 times higher than what former U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Jay Johnson said was crisis proportions of over 1,000 a day. They're 4,000 and 5,000 a day right now, even though the administration, as we're speaking now, is talking about these numbers as some kind of a victory for their new policy. But the fact of the matter is that the mass migration is happening now in 3 major ways that are beyond public sight. And I think that's very important to note, that it's still happening, just not as visibly as those mass numbers of what we call give-ups, where you'd have 3,000 people cross over and then just wait, and the Fox News drones would fly over them, and we were all shocked. What's happening now is that after Title 42 ended, the administration opened the aperture wide, as the spigot, as wide as they possibly could, on this other program that hands out humanitarian fast pass permits, basically, that to thousands upon thousands, untold thousands really, of immigrants who would have crossed illegally, but they're bringing in them through the ports of entry now under awnings that are designed to protect against, the harsh sun down there, but actually also protect against Fox News drones from seeing these lines that are hundreds of yards long. When I returned from Matamoros just a week or so ago, I crossed one of those bridges, and for 100 yards straight, I passed immigrants who had the fast pass humanitarian permits that they're handing out willy-nilly to just about all comers, all applicants in line, ready to be escorted into the United States. Those people, just like illegal immigrants crossing between ports of entry, will be boarding buses. will be shipping themselves and their families straight into the American heartland, just like as though they had crossed illegally. But the administration is taking a victory lap, saying, well, because they came in this way, we can't, our numbers are way down of illegal immigrants. And technically, very technically, that is accurate, except that they're not telling you that the 40% that they're down is they're up through the bridges. So it's a cheap accounting trick. Ultimately, that's one of the primary ways that they're crossing. They open that up wide. They said they would do it. They said they would increase it, and they did on May 12th. And nobody is really reporting on that at all.
Yeah, and so in that mechanism, my observation has been that what they're doing is they've basically recategorized these individuals. So you have the encounters is what we've looked at for the last period of years.
Yes.
Those encounters typically are between the ports of entry. So like let's say you have Naco, Arizona, port of entry, and you've got Douglas, Arizona, port of entry. Everybody coming in between those would be considered an encounter if you caught them and they gave up, et cetera. But now the administration is kind of funneling, as you say, to the ports of entry, providing them with some kind of status, which quite frankly, there is no legal authority to give them that status.
Very questionable, and it's being litigated by 20 states.
Yeah, and then they're bringing them in and immediately releasing them into the country.
Yeah, and that's just one of the three ways that they're coming through. There's almost no media reporting on that. You have to, in order to see that, you have to go to the Mexican side and get in line at the bridge coming back. And there they are. I just had a friend in Tijuana report the line there of fast pass humanitarian permit holders was like 500 yards long. It was massive. So the people are coming in large numbers to get in line for this. But the second way that they're getting in, which also has not been reported, except maybe by me, I can't find anybody else who's reported this, is the replacement for Title 42 is something called Title 8, expedited removal. The idea there is if we catch you crossing illegally, we will throw you back immediately under expedited removal, maybe even all the way back to your country, and slap some sanctions on you like a 5-year ban on re-entry. And we're going to say no to you automatically if you apply for asylum. What they don't tell you is that right now, people are crossing that border in untold hundreds, if not thousands, anyway. And when they get in and they apply for asylum and are turned down, they just simply appeal. I appeal.
That's right.
And then they're letting them in. They are letting hundreds and hundreds of immigrants in under Title 8, expedited removal, just like they said they would not, that they would never do. They're all being put on buses with personal recognizance papers, honor system, pinky agreement to report voluntarily to an ICE office somewhere in the interior where they can fight their asylum appeal for the next 5 years. And they're in. That is happening right now. It has not been reported other than by me as far as I can tell. And we can expect that because that's happening, the 120,000 minimum immigrants that are in Mexico or believed to be in Mexico right now are going to learn about this. And if they don't get in, if they don't want to wait for the CBP-1, the humanitarian fast pass permit through the port of entry, because that line's getting very long, they'll figure out that they can just cross illegally and get in anyway that way by just saying, I appeal thee. So that's the second way that large numbers are getting through. They are getting through under Title 8. They are. Whatever they are getting through, they're being allowed in.
Let me, for people who don't know the distinctions, so Title 42 was meant to be a temporary measure, an emergency measure for health purposes. I'm actually was okay if Title 42 went away, provided you had some other mechanism in place. But they didn't do another mechanism in place. So they went back to Title 8, and Title 8 is the normal border security INA law. The problem with Title 8 is you're actually supposed to be detained or removed pending the outcome of your immigration status application. So in this,
Usually an asylum claim.
yeah, right. So this, they're claiming asylum. Asylum, they can be removed through expedited removal, but this is exactly so. I've had CBP officers on the last couple of weeks as well, and they anticipated that this would happen. You've reported on it. I've seen it as well. And what they do is the cartels, and actually, frankly, the NGOs that we're helping fund, they will tell them when they go to expedite your removal, you just ask for an appeal to the asylum denial that they give you, and so next thing you know, you're released into the country.
Yes.
Even the Washington Post reported last weekend of 32,000 people that had come in. 11,000 had been removed, but 21,000 had been immediately released into the country. So, I mean, you're seeing this type of thing there, Todd. So the third way.
The third thing that is reportedly happening is that because there are so many immigrants that are interested in the CBP-1 Fast Pass humanitarian permit process, the wait time is becoming long. Even though they've opened the spigots as wide as they can, I believe, we don't really know how far they've opened the spigots because they won't release the data. They won't tell us how many they're giving out.
Who's not releasing the data?
The DHS, Department of Homeland Security, is not releasing that data. My organization, CIS, has an active lawsuit to break loose the data that they wouldn't give me in my FOIA for these numbers. So we don't know how many. When they say we're down 40%, oh my God, well, look at this, and they're taking a lap. What they're not telling you is the percentage increase that they're letting through under CBP-1 through the ports of entry. I would probably bet a paycheck that it's somewhere in the 40% range, or whatever the range of the decline was. It's an increase in this other thing. And so ultimately it's a wash, if not an increase. The problem is that immigrants aren't going to put up for long with lines that might make them have to wait for weeks or even months inside Mexico for their permit, for their fast pass permit. But they also may not qualify for it. If they have criminal history inside the United States, that's easy to look up. And they also don't want to cross illegally and turn themselves in that way and appeal their asylum denial. They're going to hire smugglers and run. They're going to run for daylight. And what we're seeing in the hinterlands, like in New Mexico and Arizona, especially and in West Texas, in the big country, is an increase that started last month in runners who intend to get away. We should start to see the numbers of gotaways and runners spike from this point on. It already started to spike in the month leading up to the end of Title 42, and by testimony from experts like Border Patrol who are out there chasing these people, the numbers of runners is already spiking up and should continue to go on a trajectory like this. So you can't see the runners very easily. I did a big video piece. It took me days of trying to even see anything out there as they're trying to chase them down. But they're getting through. The majority are getting through because the Border Patrol is not on the line as much as they were out there, because they were brought in to do processing duty for all the give ups and everybody else. And so the opportunity is better. The odds are better for runners to actually get through with cartel smugglers. So you can't really see the runners very easily, but the numbers are there. You can't see the CBP-1, fast pass humanitarian permits because nobody wants to see it. And you can't fly a drone over it, and the administration won't give us the numbers unless we sue them for the numbers. And by the way, the 8 or 9 congressmen asked for those numbers. I think you might have been a signatory on that, if I'm not mistaken, and they sort of didn't respond by the April 4th deadline. So that's still out there.
And so just so people understand, we do communicate or attempt to communicate with Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas, and they've been slow going in giving us information. We actually do better when we ask CBP Chief Ortiz. He will give us information more rapidly than we get out of the department itself.
Well, I hope you share it publicly when it comes out, because that is a very key number that they're hiding the ball on. How many are they letting in on these CBP, fast pass permits? It's parole authority. They're misusing that.
Right.
And I should add that, we also are not going to be hearing for quite a while about how many of the give-ups that got caught crossing illegally were then paroled into the United States on the buses. That is definitely happening. I can attest to that. It is happening, but we won't know how much it's happening. It's not something that the administration is very eager to even acknowledge, because once they acknowledge that this is happening, it's just a matter of time before word spreads throughout Mexico that there's a really easy way in. It's probably easier than waiting for CBP 1, and people are going to start weighing that, whether they should just cross and give themselves up or wait for the CBP 1 thing. One last thing is there is litigation challenging the administration's use of the parole authority for mass humanitarian giveaways, permits like this. 20 states, including Texas, have sued on the principle that law is being grossly misused. And the day that they win and they get an injunction against it, you can kind of expect that all of the immigrants that were counting on this thing to kind of sneak in through the ports of entry on, legal parole are suddenly going to have no other way except to cross illegally. And we would expect to see a mad rush on that. That is probably very short-lived, however long it lasts.
And I just want anybody who's trying to figure out what parole is. Parole is meant to be a humanitarian grant for temporary entrance into the U.S. And Chief Scott actually this morning testified before the Immigration Subcommittee of the Judiciary, and I sit on that subcommittee, testified that during his time they averaged maybe 6 to 8 a year. And now last year, Mayorkas granted over 300,000. And this year we're anticipating in excess of 750,000 parole status. And the deal is you can work in the country and stay in the country for 2 years, but we never see them again and they disappear into the country. I want to ask you, before we run out of time, a lot of people who look at the border, they don't appreciate the environmental impact on the border. Now, I've tried to show it multiple times, going down to the border. I mean, I can show you places in Pinal County, Arizona, which is about 60 miles off the border before you get there, where it's just the environmental damage is incredible. So I'm going to ask Matthew, would you please show us clip 1? This is Todd's.
The mattress.
Is it soft, but pretty much nice cushion, but you fall down, and that's what you're getting on you.
Yeah. No telling what you're getting on you if you fall into this.
Animals that come through here, so there's feces, there's medication, people got medication around them, diapers.
Yeah, so Todd, where was that?
Yeah, that was just across from Matamoros in I guess technically Brownsville, Texas. That is what a landing area looks like, a debris field from mass migration, real mass migration. About 10,000 immigrants crossed through there in a very short period of time, just a couple of weeks. And the immigrants, when they come through, they bring plastic bags with dry clothing in it. And when they hit the other bank, they get rid of their wet clothing and leave it, plus everything else, put the dry clothing on, and then they get paroled into the United States, or, you know, they get processed in some way or fashion. But what they leave behind is disgusting. It's nothing short of disgusting. The damage is extensive. It stinks. That stuff is going to stay on that sensitive riparian habitat for a really long time. It's unclear really who is ever going to clean it all up. And I can tell you that from spending a lot of time on the Mexican side, that the camps, these camps where the immigrants are staying, waiting for their time to cross, they just dump their garbage right into the river constantly. The garbage is just spilling over into the river, and the river is now so filled with unnatural nutrients that it's choked out for hundreds of yards with this kind of weed that's in there. And this goes on for, really hundreds of miles of disgusting riverbank garbage on both sides, really. And I don't hear anybody really complaining about this. It's absolutely a problem. It is an environmental hazard. And I don't know who is responsible for cleaning it up. I've heard Border Patrol sometimes will go in with a bulldozer when things quiet down, but otherwise, this is like non-biodegradable trash, chemicals, and personal, cosmetics, bottles, and hairspray, and all that kind of stuff is just out there to just rot.
Yeah. So I've been on the river myself, and you can go, and on both sides of the river, it just flows right on down into the river Rio Grande. So before we go, I want to thank you again, Todd, but I just want to clarify a couple things that I think need to be clarified. When we start talking about parole, statutory authority is on a case-by-case individual basis where you've vetted the individual. Last year, Secretary Mayorkas let in over 300,000. This year, just from four countries, he's proposed 30,000 a month. We're talking from Haiti, Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. That's 360,000 that he's proposed from them. Plus, he's going to give another grant of parole to probably another 500,000 people. So that's why I say we expect more than 750,000 individuals. So, Todd, you get down there, you do great work. You're telling us the truth, and we have over 1 million people getting green cards annually. We have work programs where people are coming in on visas. We've got student visas. We've got massive amounts. We allow more people legally to enter the United States than all of the rest of the world combined annually. And yet still, over the last 2 years, we've had over 6 million people come in under the Biden administration's open border policy. Really dismaying, really dismaying. I want to thank you again, Todd. I look forward to seeing you again, and I know we'll be down to the border together again before too very long. So
yeah, thank you very much. I do appreciate it, and I'll see you either there or in DC. Hopefully, one or the other. I'll see you.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Todd. Thanks. Join us next time for another.